what a beautiful service this has been this morning. I, of course, looked up the theme for the month as I was coming down to share a message, and it was emotions, and I thought, whew, sometimes be careful what you ask for. So, yes, but anyway, my talk is called Pomp and Circumstance, and we will tie back to emotions and love for sure. So it's June. It is now officially summer. We had summer solstice. It is Pride Month. And yesterday was National Indigenous People Day. Did you do something to celebrate? Nice. Oh, good. Did you know that it's a day of celebration? Yeah, good. Because, I actually didn't know that until fairly recently. We have obviously a complicated history with the First Nations people of Canada, and we have several days. We have Truth and Reconciliation Day in September, we have Red Dress Day in May, and then we have this day in June. And the other 2 days are days of memory, of reminding us of our history. But this is the day, the National Indigenous Peoples Day, is where we celebrate First Nations wisdom and culture. So it really is a day to go out and celebrate. And I work at North Island College, and I actually teach in a program that has an Indigenous focus. And we just recently had a meeting where we were talking about the content of our program, and one of the things that came up is that one of the women shared, she said, you have to remember, if you're indigenizing content, it can't stop with, these are the horrible things from our history that we need to reconcile. You have to also bring in the culture and the beautiful parts of the First Nations wisdom. So that, I think, is such an important thing. And actually this model that I really love, and the name of the person escapes me who created it. The infinity symbol that goes like this? So it's about reconciliation and education. And in the middle, she has the infinity symbol, but it's got a circle in the middle as well. So it flows through the middle. And in the middle is reconciliation. And the one side is healing the past. And the other side is celebrating the culture. So it's not actually related to my talk, but I wanted to share with you just the importance of that day and that we really do celebrate. Because I know as somebody who's not First Nations, sometimes I wonder, I don't want to be taking something the wrong way and be disrespectful, but it really is an opportunity to celebrate. So it's a time of lots of ritual. Some people celebrate summer solstice. As I mentioned, I work in post-secondary, so June is convocation month. And in 6 days, I attended 3 convocations. And the first convocation was at the University of Toronto. My son graduated from law school, so it was the law school and public policy graduation. Yeah, thanks. Yay. So that was the first one. And then my daughter-in-law, they both were in Toronto doing a program. She graduated from a place called Michener Institute, which is all kinds of specialized medical healthcare programs, like some that I've never heard of. One was cardiovascular perfusion. And I was like, I don't know what that is. It sounds important. Apparently, they're the people who keep you alive when they do surgery on your heart. So very, very helpful. So anyways, that was the second one we attended. And then we came back to BC, and I was able to attend the North Island College convocation and celebrate the students that I taught this year. So it was beautiful, and I really got to look closely at a convocation. And I'm not actually, in my own life, I'm not a very ritual-y kind of person. Even though, it doesn't really add up. I'm a minister. I do lots of weddings. I do memorial services and those types of things. And yet in my own life, I'm not really a ritual kind of person. There's definitely a part of my brain that is very rational and a little bit cynical. So one of the things about convocation and pomp and circumstance is that music, right? The march that they come into, that beautiful music that all the graduates everywhere come into. And I looked it up, and they've been doing that since 1905. The first time it was played was 1905 at Yale. And it just made me think about the ritual of a graduation and the ritual of lots of things. And what does it mean and why do we do it? Because if you take if you take your heart out of it and look at it logically and objectively, it's pretty dumb. Like, have you seen the hats somebody who has a PhD, have you seen the hats they wear and the big robes? Like, they're brightly colored and these velvet beefeaters. They look ridiculous. And yet, what I really came to is, ritual and ceremony is not for our logical mind. It's for our hearts. And I think of myself, I'm not really into ritual. I don't really do that. I mean, I support other people in their weddings, but in fact, Derek and I have been together almost 16 years and we aren't married. So it just hasn't been a thing. But what I realized the minute that the march starts, like, my heart opens up. I'm so excited for the graduates and their journey. And then they are welcomed into this heartfelt process where they walk across the stage and they enter basically their field of study. And it is kind of a beautiful thing if I can take my mind out of it and say, man, this is stupid and that hat looks ridiculous. So I think that is really what I wanted to share today and again, actually had a chance to chat with Barb this morning before this service, and we were talking about, in the New Thought movement, there's a lot of intellectual wisdom. We love a good book study. We love to talk about the principles. We love to really remind ourselves that our beliefs create our reality and that our word is, our experience. And then for me anyway, sometimes I forget that other side of just bringing my heart and my body along. That part that doesn't make any sense. That part is just as important. The side of the getting our mind on board is fantastic, but it's balanced out with that ritual and ceremony. So, as I said, I do weddings and memorials, and sometimes new trends come in. Like one of the latest trends, and this is, goes through all the young people as they're getting married. One of the latest trends is that couples they do their vows in private. They don't want to do their vows, and I don't know if it messes up their Instagram feed or whatever, but a lot of couples will say, yeah, we're not going to do that. And I'm always like, this is allowed to be exactly what you want, and maybe think about it. Like, imagine that moment. I do a ceremony for them. So I bring them through. I talk about marriage. I even write a little bit about their love story. And then I ask them their declaration about, do you promise to, blah, blah, blah. And they say, I do. But that's the moment where I walk away. They stand there in front of their friends and family. And from their hearts, they speak about their commitment to each other. And so for me, I'm like, really? Would you reconsider doing your vows? Like, it's such a beautiful, if you think about it logically, maybe it doesn't make sense. And you're like, yeah, well, we'll do it in our own time. And that's great too. But I always think if you can come back, we've been doing this type of a ceremony for thousands of years. And that's the other piece about ritual and ceremony, is it connects us to our past, our ancestry. It connects us to just this experience, this heartfelt journey. The other thing that is happening a lot is memorial services. How many of you have had that experience where somebody, in your community passes and the family says, oh, we're not going to do a service. Or they say, we'll just do a barbecue in the summer. And I'm like, no, the whole point of a memorial service is when everybody's hearts are broken and we don't know what to do, we don't know what to say to each other. There is a ritual that we follow. You show up, somebody does the eulogy, there's a message, there's a reading. And what that does is it holds our hearts and it walks us through that acute phase of the grief. Later, we can have that barbecue, but that's such an important thing. My daughter-in-law, who I mentioned just graduated, the other thing, we've had a lot of ceremony in our lives, is my daughter-in-law is from India and her family is Muslim. So they had a ceremony to celebrate their relationship in the Muslim faith. And then we actually went to Edmonton to her brother's wedding. I have never been to a Muslim wedding and didn't really know what to expect. But again, when we got there, there was a ritual. There were these ceremonies related to henna, putting some henna on their hands, actually feeding them some yogurt. And again, logic mind, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of yogurt if 100 people are going to feed you a spoonful. But it's not about the logic of it, right? It's about the heart of it. And another thing that ritual does is it invites us into a sense of belonging. And one of the things I said to Lasia when I first came to VTC is that she's done such a beautiful job with your service. The ceremony of it, the ritual of it, the welcoming the new person. There is a thing for everybody to do. We don't have to say, oh, there's a new person here. I wonder what we should do about that. It's part of the ceremony of it, right? It allows us, when we feel perhaps nervous or uncertain, it allows us to just keep walking and moving and to let our hearts catch up and to just process whatever emotions we might be having as we keep moving forward. Now, there's a flip side you get to the just do ritual for the sake of ritual, and you get the really ugly side of it where it contains manipulative aspects. That is not what I'm talking about here. That for sure is a piece to be aware of that has happened. But what I'm talking about is just balancing. We're here, we're sharing the message, we've got the beautiful music. Again, that's part of the ceremony. When I was in ministerial training, I was taught the music and ministry class by a minister named Doug LeBeau. And he's a sound guy, and he does the sound for Disney movies and things. And what he said is, the music of the service is the most important part, because people they come for the music until they're ready to hear the message. And I thought, you feel that this morning, right? Can you imagine if we just started all of this and there was no music? We'd all be sitting here just in our heads still thinking about what's she going to say and how's the coffee going to taste and, all of that, right? But the music, it brings us into our hearts and our bodies, even when we're clapping, and we're singing along, it brings us all together into harmony. And it gives us, if you are new, you know exactly what to do because somebody says, let's stand up and repeat this. Let's sing along. I'll guide you. So ritual and ceremony really is the thing that can help us process our emotions. And I don't know about all of you, but there is a lot going on in the world that is causing some emotion in me. And this, I think, for myself, and this is I'm not coming to you as this expert, I'm coming to you as somebody who's you know what? I need to create more ritual in my life. I go out and I create it for other people, but I really don't take the time for myself. And that's something that's new for me where I thought, I definitely need to do this. So what ritual can do is it connects us with everybody that's come before us. It brings our heart and our body into alignment with our thoughts, and it also creates comfort. When you come in, Derek and I actually met 16, 17, 18 years ago in a personal development workshop, and it was this very intensive weekend workshop. It was very ritual-based. The guy who ran it was a minister, so he created it. The same song was played at the same time. There's that song called Calling All Angels. It was played at a very heartfelt, vulnerable moment. I can hear that in a grocery store and my heart rips open and I can weep in the middle of the grocery store when just that song starts. That's how deeply we can be affected by ritual and ceremony. So I think it's, almost what it is. I work in education. And I am a total education snob. I believe we can transform people with education. And one of my colleagues works in behavior intervention. And I observed her in her class once, and she's teaching people, when this happens, you do that. And I'm like, the educator in me is like, no, I want you to understand the concepts and why you would do this. And she's like, no, my job is to say, this happens, do this happens, do this. And they practice it over and over again. And I got to admit, at first I was a little judgy about it. But then I realized that's just like the intellect and the spiritual side and the ritual, they go together. Because let's face it, we are being brainwashed all the time. I can say, da-da-da-da-da, and you know exactly, right, what commercial that is. There are so many things that is ritualized for us, and then we get to also choose to come into spiritual community, to create ritual together. And it's been beautiful to watch. Lesia, it really pulls this all together usually. But to see everybody play their part and say, this is spiritual community, right? That Lesia can go and do her training elsewhere, and we can carry the ritual because there's such a solid foundation. So that is really what I wanted to come and say, is that I think the emotions that we have, we can process them through our ritual and ceremony. And then just to circle back to the University of Toronto, so the law school takes themselves very seriously. They're considered to be the top law school in the country, and they know it. But the last speech that was given by the professor was just to say, basically he said, you remember when you came to orientation, what did I tell you? And he said, what I told you is you belong here. He says, what did I tell you at the end of every class? What he told them is be good to each other and be good to yourselves. And then his piece of advice was, don't be a jerk. And I thought, wow, the top law school in the country is actually not teaching anything different than us in spiritual community, right? Like, we just want to be good to each other and ourselves. We want to find that place of belonging, and we want to just not be a jerk. So that is my message today. And we're going to take our time for our little discussion, and I'd love to know about you and your experience with ritual. And how does that, do you have ritual in your life? And does this sort of awaken something in you that you say, maybe I will create some ritual? All right.